Alright, so with the release of Creed 3, I got in the mood to watch Creed and Creed 2. I know I'm reviewing these a little out of order, but hey, better late than never. Now, if you didn't watch my review for Creed 3, I would recommend watching that first, actually. But a brief little recap of something very important from that video. I have not seen all the Rocky movies, I've only seen the first one, so that is something you guys should know going into this review. Starting off with 2015's Creed, this one is directed by Ryan Coogler, who directed Black Panther and Black Panther Wakanda Forever. And this is where we first meet Adonis Johnson, who would go on to be Adonis Creed, played by the incredibly talented Michael B. Jordan. Also in the film, of course, Sylvester Stallone as Rocky Balboa himself, Tessa Thompson as Bianca, Felicia Rashad as Marianne Creed, the wife to Apollo Creed, and the main antagonist of the film, Pretty Ricky Conlon, played by Tony Bellew. And like I said, this is when Adonis is still going by Adonis Johnson and not Adonis Creed. He's basically trying to make a name for himself and not have to live underneath that shadow. That shadow, of course, being his father, Apollo Creed. The first movie follows similar beats as the first Rocky film, but very much sets out on its own path. Obviously, it's updated for more modern times, but of course, it's dealing with elements that are very different from the first Rocky film. Now, if you watch my Creed 3 review, you'll know that I said this is still my favorite Creed movie. I think Creed 3 is a very close second, but this one I love so much. Every time I watch it, I'm filled with so much inspiration and emotion, adrenaline. This film has so much heart. It very much is an underdog story, much like the first Rocky film. Last thing I'll mention about the 2015 Creed film is the soundtrack. I talk about those inspirational moments. I talk about those moments that fill me with adrenaline, but I wouldn't have those feelings if it weren't for the soundtrack they add to it. There's one scene in particular, if you've seen the movie, you'll know what I'm talking about, but it's the scene where Adonis is running on the road and you have the people with the dirt bikes and the ATVs driving around him. That scene alone is so awesome, and the music they add to it is fantastic. The soundtrack in here is the perfect soundtrack if you're looking for some hype music for the gym. Now, when it comes to 2018's Creed 2, you do have a different director on board here. You don't have Ryan Coogler attached whatsoever. The director of the second one is Stephen Caple Jr. I do want to mention here that one of the writers of the screenplay is Sylvester Stallone himself, who, for those of you who don't know, is the creator of the Rocky franchise. This film brings back the iconic Ivan Drago, once again played by Dolph Lundgren. Obviously, I haven't seen the Rocky films that he's in, but I know that he's such an iconic villain, and in here, he feels a little bit different from what I would expect. But I think it's that evolution that brings more to his character. It brings more layers to him rather than him just being this cartoonish supervillain, which honestly would be a really easy angle to want to go for, but I'm glad they didn't. Not to say he doesn't have his over-the-top moments, because he kind of does, but not as over-the-top as you would think. But of course, the reason his character is brought in because he wants his son, Victor Drago, to fight Apollo Creed's son. Victor Drago is played here by, and I'm sorry ahead of time I'm going to butcher this name, Florian Monto? Probably saying that wrong. But he is an absolute brick wall of a man, and very intimidating in the film. Once again, referencing my review for Creed 3, but in that review I said that the fight in that movie seemed like the most personal fight in the entire Creed franchise, completely forgetting about how personal this fight in here is. Do I change my stance on Creed 3? Not completely, but still, it's worth mentioning. I'm not going to get too specific with things that happen in the Rocky franchise because I might be covering them in the near future, and also I just don't want to spoil anything for the people that haven't seen it. But this is a very personal fight for Adonis Creed in this movie. But at the end of the day, my biggest issue with this movie, and it's kind of an issue with the first movie as well, is the pacing. In the first movie, it kind of drags a little bit at parts, but it doesn't bother me as much in the first movie as it does in here. In this movie, it rushes way too much for the first 40 minutes, and then after that point, it drags pretty much the rest of the movie. When it came to rewatching the first and second Creed movies for this review, it was only the second time I'd watched the second movie. The first time was in the theaters, and after watching it in the theater, I knew I didn't care for it as much as I did with the first one. Having watched the third one now, I know that it is my least favorite of the three, but it's still not bad. I like it more than I did then, but still not quite as good as the other two. But the real reason I wanted to make this review is to talk about Rocky Balboa. Now, when it comes to Creed 1 and 2, his presence is very much required for the story that they have. Of course, with the second one, Ivan Drago is somebody that he fought in the past, so it's important to have Rocky Balboa there. But for the first one especially, it's important to have him there to kind of pass the torch off to Adonis. I think his presence in these first two films is very much a welcome one. The fact that he's not in the third one really doesn't bother me that much. Like I said in that review, it will be something that might bother some people, but at the end of the day, that story didn't require him. Him not being there didn't ruin the movie by any means. I think him being there probably would have bogged it down more than anything. I love the character of Rocky Balboa. I love Sylvester Stallone as Rocky Balboa. I think he is iconic. He's one of the greatest movie characters of all time. His presence in both films are fantastic. I do think that the story with Rocky Balboa in the first Creed film as opposed to the second is better. The second one, it kind of just feels like he was an afterthought at times, but in the first one, he was a very integral part of the story. But yeah, overall, very quick reviews for both movies, but I did want to come in here and talk about the Rocky Balboa thing in particular. When it comes to ranking these two movies, I'm going to go ahead and rank them in the retro film ranking system. I know they are not retro films by any means, but hey, we're being retrospective, we're looking back, so let's just go with that, I guess. For Creed 2015, this is definitely a certified classic. It is a movie that you should watch before you die, much like the first Rocky film. And for 2018's Creed 2, I'm going to have to go ahead and give this one a class eh. It's honestly not a bad film, but I feel like it's the one out of the three that's going to be remembered the least. But have you seen any of the Creed movies? Tell me down in the comments below. What did you think? Did you love them? Did you hate them? Are you in the middle? Have you not seen any of the Creed movies? Are you planning on watching any of them anytime soon? Why or why not? Comment that down below as well. Really, any comments you have for me, I'd love to hear from you. I respond to pretty much all of them. Lastly, I said in my review for Creed 3 that if you got that video to 100 likes, I would review the Rocky franchise. I am now changing that in this video. If you can get that last video to 50 likes and this video to 50 likes, then I will go ahead and review the Rocky franchise. So if that's something you want to see on the channel, go ahead and hit the like button. Do me a favor and leave a like on this video, subscribe, hit that notification bell so you never miss an upload, and I will see you in the next one.